Hello and welcome to the John Ark Show. Today's episode is called Is Somebody Planning to Kill You? We now live in very challenging times. Because of that, you have to ask yourself some difficult questions. Is someone planning to murder or rob you because you're successful? Are they planning to kill you because they think you have something they need? We're going to answer those questions in a few minutes. But first, I wanted to encourage you to subscribe, like, follow, and comment on the show, as well as to tell you that the show is sponsored by Hollywood is Calling. It's a company which allows you to purchase live calls with real celebrities. You can purchase a call with over 100 celebrities. So give it a try. The calls are $19.95 and $29.95. It's hollywoodiscalling.com. Now let's get started. Up until this point in time, if you lived in a relatively safe neighborhood, then there was a low probability that anybody would ever harm you. But recent events have changed all that. You can no longer assume that you're safe. As of today, 25% of the population of Michigan is out of work, and other states are presumed to have much higher official and unofficial unemployment numbers. So keep that in mind. That's a lot of desperate and hungry people. And that government check that was sent out to a lot of folks, that's not going to last very far. A lot of people have been given a 60-day forbearance or deferral on their mortgage or their rent payments. And a lot of people believe that that's not enough time. So once you exit that 60-day period, if you're a homeowner trying to make a mortgage payment and you don't have the money, or you're a renter and you don't have the rent money to make a payment, then it is currently assumed that most banks and most apartment complexes will begin eviction proceedings against you. If you still haven't been called back to work and you've depleted your savings, then what are you going to do? That money will still need to be paid somehow. How long before some of your struggling neighbors see you driving down the street in your Cadillac or your SUV and they realize that they don't have food money for next week, and they start to get desperate? They need to feed their families. They need to put a roof over the heads of their families. How long before the homeless people who live a couple of miles down the road see you driving your car and start following you back to your neighborhood to see where you park it at night? Where do you live? When do you come and go? And they come to the conclusion that the only place they're probably going to get some food is from your refrigerator. What happens when a man who's just been evicted with his family sees you driving down the road in a nice car, or even a car period? Maybe he and his family have been walking for a few days, and just the sight of you in a car, maybe that triggers some thoughts in his head. There are some people who believe that, given recent events, that a lot of people will not be able to drive their BMWs and their Mercedes for quite some time, simply for fear of the response that it might trigger in homeless people or street criminals, or even maybe just your desperate neighbor. Sit back and think about the people you've known for the last 10 years. How many of them, if any, do you think still bear you ill will and still feel vindictively towards you? You need to perform what security experts call an enemy audit. I think it's really important for people with a few bucks in the bank, or even just people who have a job at this point in our history. Just a job is enough to make you perceived as being wealthier than everybody else. And if that's the case, then you should perform what's known as an enemy audit. The way you do that is to make a list of all the people from your past who you think still bear you ill will, and then go through that list and ask how many people do you think on that list have what it takes to try to harm you in some way, to try to steal from you and from your family, just so they can keep continuing to feed their own families or themselves. I'm guessing everybody has a few people on their list just like that. They probably weren't like that years ago, but extreme desperation can trigger extreme behavior. Next, ask yourself how many people on that list do not share your standard of living. And do you have a cook, a nanny, a landscaper, a pool person, a maid who comes to the house on a regular basis to work for you? Ask yourself, should you continue to keep allowing them to come to your home? Is that safe? Is that wise? How will they behave once they become desperate? Would it be wise to let them go, give them a severance check, and tell them that you'll call them back after the economy improves? You have to ask yourself these tough questions. Do you have an ex-partner or ex-spouse who has despised you ever since your divorce or your breakup? Do you have any business partners from the past that continue to hate you ever since you stopped doing business with them? Ask yourself the murder question. Now, of all the people you've just described, would any of them have what it takes to try and kill you over money or food? Do any of them have a drinking problem? Do any of them have a drug problem? Do any of them associate with or date criminals? If the answer to any of those questions is yes, then the probability of them doing something stupid has just increased. Next, I want you to consider your personal security. You've got to ask yourself some tough questions here. Do you live in a sanctuary city where the police no longer respond to a lot of 911 calls simply because they want to be politically correct? Have you always hated the idea of owning guns or having a gun in your house? Do the people from your past know that you don't have any guns in your home? Well, if that's the case, then you've probably just gone from being a vulnerable target to a probable victim. Because if somebody from your past knows that you won't protect yourself, that has just elevated the threat to your family and to you. Do they know where you live? Do they know what the inside of your house looks like? All these factors increase the threats to you and your family. So what should you do? You need to put a plan into place to protect you, yourself, and your family. So here are some suggestions. If enemies from your past suddenly start calling and wanting to get together for old time's sake, or to reconcile, or just have a talk, you should make up an excuse and tell them that you're having some family issues that'll prevent you from getting together with them, and tell them that you'll get back in touch with them when things improve. If you own a luxury vehicle, then you need to stop thinking of it as a luxury vehicle and start thinking of it as a massive bullseye. And think really hard about where you drive it and who sees you driving it. What is the threat level about going into this part of town or that part of town? Do you have a lot of valuables in your home? If so, you should probably get a large safety deposit box at the bank and store things there for a while. If you have a concealed carry permit, but you don't really carry your weapon very often, you should probably consider changing that policy and carry it whenever you leave the house for the time being. And if you don't have a concealed carry license or a weapon, then you may want to carry some other legal weapon on your person. Maybe it's mace. Maybe it's a baseball bat in the back seat of the car. Maybe it's a legal size knife. It's always better to have something rather than nothing. Next, you should sit down with your family and teach them what's known as situational awareness. If you've never been in a fist fight, never been punched in the face or attacked or robbed, then you probably don't have a very good sense of situational awareness. You need to teach your family to always be aware of who's around them, what they're doing, what are they up to. If that makes you look a little paranoid in public, then it's better to be paranoid and safe than to be overly ignorant of your surroundings and end up as a victim. If you pull up to your house and there are a bunch of strangers in front, don't stop, keep driving, call the house, tell them what's going on, and then circle back in a little while to see if they're still there. It could be nothing, or it could be strangers waiting for you to get home, or maybe they're waiting to burglarize your home. Either way, don't make it any easier for them. What do you do if you confirm that somebody's out to get you? Call the police immediately. Tell them what's going on. Call your family. Tell them what's going on. You should also get a guard dog, a home alarm, a car alarm. You have to increase your security measures to pose more of a threat for anybody trying to harm you. Next, and perhaps most importantly, I want you and your entire family to begin listening to your instincts. Listen to your gut. If they're telling you that somebody's watching you, somebody's following you, something feels weird, then do not ignore that. The best way to get killed is to ignore your instincts. The minute you ignore them, that's almost a guarantee that something bad is about to happen. So having said that, I want to thank you for watching and tell you that we will talk to you soon.